Boom. Nope. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Basics Podcast, the least pretentious fitness podcast out there. Well, actually, now, Dylan, you said it earlier, but now we both look like guys holding their microphones like pretentious douchebags. So maybe we can no longer call ourselves the least pretentious
And you're
fitness
wearing a bro
podcast out
tank.
there. Well, not just any bro tanks. So let's start there. This is a special podcast because I am wearing our I Lift to Sad Songs tank top, and Dylan, it's fucking sweet.
It is.
Man. It's so sweet. And I got a real nice lift in afterwards. So it's for real.
You look buff.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
It suits you.
Yeah, well, happy belated Father's Day to you, my
You
friend.
too,
You're
man.
first, and to all of our father listeners out there, of which I imagine there are a few. How was it? How was Father's Day numero uno?
I had a really nice day. My heart was a bit broken for Rory McIlroy. I don't know if you watched the golf tournament, but
Yeah, you know what? I was stoked for Bryson.
I'm a Bryson guy too. I've come fully around on him. I used to not be a huge fan. I think his YouTube content is fantastic, and I like him. But man, the pressure of winning, the pressure of being that successful so young for Rory, winning 5 majors in his first 14, and then to go on a 10-year hiatus of winning major championships, and then to lose because you miss a 3-foot putt and a 3.5-foot putt is just gut wrenching. Like,
Yeah, I saw something how like this year he hadn't missed a single putt, inside 4 feet.
396 for 396.
God dang.
You think about the magnitude that pressure has on people.
Yeah.
Man, it's real.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How was yours? Did you have a good
It was
Father's Day?
solid. My folks were around.
Oh,
My
nice.
son participated in a cherry pie eating contest over the weekend. He finished second, just a crumb short.
Damn.
But he'll get him next year. And then he just played I just got home from a soccer match. So, and if you're watching the YouTube, you'll notice that I'm also recording in his bedroom. So,
How long does it take an 8-year-old to eat an entire cherry pie?
no, well, what a slice. So actually, it's
Oh.
funny that you say that because leading up to it, he asked, I wasn't there for it. He asked my sister right before, he said, "Hey, can I get a funnel cake?" And she said, "You're about to have you're about to do the cherry pie eating contest." And he goes, "Oh yeah, that's right. I got to save room. I have to eat a whole cherry pie." And he just had to eat one slice, but the caveat is he couldn't use his hands. Um,
Oh, that's fun.
and so the plate kept slipping away from him. I saw the video. There were definitely some teachable moments. And if he wants to, he'll get him next year. And then he just had a soccer match today, so he is certainly a well-rounded athlete.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. All right, but we are not here to talk about cherry pie and Dylan's microphone situation. We are here to bring to you, the people, the realest, most practical fitness advice that there is on the planet. And we're going to start today with our hot topic. Dylan, right after the last podcast, actually, you sent me over this article from The Atlantic. And right before we started recording, I said that I had to use my 7-day free trial with The Atlantic to read this article. So, the title of it is "Why It Was Easier to Be Skinny in the 1980s." Subheading: A new study finds that people today who eat and exercise the same amount as people 20 years ago are still badder. And then it shows a woman in a leotard doing some sort of jazzercise move. So I read the article, and actually the one thing that I was pleased with was they do outline some of the reasons why, which we can get into in a little bit. But I guess first and foremost, what are your opinions on this article?
Well, when I first saw the headline and sent it over to you, I had a bit of a chuckle. I thought it was going to be some kind of bullshit. nonsensical, excuse for why people today may be more overweight or trending towards higher rates of obesity than was the case in the 1980s. It's actually kind of an interesting article based on an interesting kind of meta-analysis of dietary data. It looked at 36,400 Americans from 1971 to 2008 and looked at their physical activity data. It looked at the dietary data of 36,400 Americans during that time frame, and then looked at physical activity data of 14,410 people from 1988 to 2006. And then they grouped them data sets together by the amount of food and activity, and then age and body mass index. And they found a correlation, an interesting one. A given person in 2006 eating the same amount of calories, taking in the same quantities of macronutrients like protein and fat, and exercising the same amount as a person of the same age did in 1988 would have a BMI that was about 2.3 points higher. And the quote then goes on to say, in other words, people today are about 10% heavier than people were in the 1980s, even if they follow the same diet and exercise plans.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the quote from the researcher. I think that's maybe a bit bold of a claim. It's an imperfect study for certain, but it does go on, to your point, to theorize about why these may be the findings. And I think the things they're pointing out are pretty interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And when I read the article before we even got to this point, first off, I wasn't sure if they were going to take into account physical activity, but it does seem like they've accounted for that. But one of the big things, and this is the second point that they discussed, but one of the first things that my mind went to is the amount of medication that people are on today, versus 20 years ago. And so, that was a big point in this article. You have all of these different prescription drugs that have really just like absolutely blown up on the scene since the 80s. And now we have, especially with the amount of people that are taking antidepressants, and it even says in the article here, they're one of the most commonly prescribed drugs in the United States. And one major side effect of pretty much all antidepressants is weight gain. And so, if you just right there, if you take, a population and you are giving a bunch of them medications that are going to help them retain weight, then you have a huge, a huge reason.
Yeah. And the increase in use of SSRIs correlates with the time frame of the conclusions that they're making here. So those became really popular in the 1980s, and more people are on them now than ever. So that is a really interesting point that they mention. I mean, this is one of three that they kind of point out, and it's worth noting that they're not suggesting that these are the causes. They're hypothesizing about what may be causing this. This is certainly something that still needs to be studied, but I think it's interesting to hypothesize on and discuss. So yeah, that's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah. And so then one of the other things that they say is people are exposed to more chemicals that might be weight gain inducing. Pesticides, flame retardants, and the substances in food packaging might all be altering our hormonal processes and tweaking the way our bodies put on and maintain weight. So that's something, we've discussed the potential of, issues that could come with those types of substances. I don't think we've talked about weight gain specifically, but certainly, I mean, if you have any sort of chemicals that our bodies aren't used to processing, there's going to be some bizarre side effects, especially when you think about the amount that we are exposed to these things on a daily basis compared to, even just 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, man, there's plastic in everything nowadays. Like we talked about the phthalates in the Fairlife Core Power beverage on one of our podcasts, and the incredibly high amounts of those. And it's difficult to say for certain that it leads to weight gain, but we do know that they, as we mentioned before, can have some impact on our hormonal profiles. So hormones are important in the way that we lose, maintain, and gain weight. So something interesting to explore further there as well.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I don't love about the article is, it goes on to basically say, these are all excuses as to why the population today is overweight. And so of course we need to just we need to be realistic. We are in it is harder than ever. It's never been harder to, you know, to be a healthy weight. Body weight is has really never been as big of an issue as far as being overweight is concerned, has never been as big of an issue as it currently is today. Um, I don't love the idea of giving people more excuses in their tool belt to say, oh, well, if only I was born 30 years earlier, then I wouldn't have to be exposed to all these chemicals and prescription drugs, and everything wouldn't be harming me and forcing me to gain weight. So I do think that while it is important to have this information, and it's good to know, and it's certainly a study worth doing. I just caution anybody that is looking, if you're struggling with weight and you're looking for external excuses as to why, it's going to be really challenging to make some meaningful changes. So it's not to say that we should ignore these things, but I certainly don't think that it should be one of those things where it's like, okay, um, don't worry about it, Johnny. It's okay. It's not your fault that that you're overweight, because it is still something, even though it's harder than ever, it's still something that for the most part we can control.
Yeah, my issue with the hypotheses they have here, and there's a third one we can talk about, but there's one that's missing in my opinion, and that's that like a bag of hyper palatable potato chips has never been less expensive and easier to get your hands on. Like the the quality of food that people ate in the 1980s compared to what they eat today as sort of a percentage of the overall diet has certainly evolved to more packaged foods, more heavily, processed, incredibly convenient sort of foods. And we know that they're super calorie dense, they're super easy to overeat. And so I would imagine that the diet to some degree has changed. I know that they're equating for, calories and types of foods here, but I don't know
Well,
to what degree, like if it's
they're cal
potato.
there it's for well, what it says here is it's taking into account calories and the quantities of macronutrients. But
Yeah.
like you said, there are all these different micronutrients that we are not even addressing. And you can there are plenty of people out there that are doing work on how the micronutrient content of our food is being affected by pesticides and soil quality. And then to take it a step further, and what you were just talking about, where people have never eaten less, real, quote unquote real food, natural food, and getting more and more from packaging, and that certainly has to have an impact.
Yeah, and I would imagine that, less healthy people overall, people that are consuming less micronutrients, aren't giving their bodies what they need to function well. And a side effect of that could certainly be an inability to burn fat and lose weight. Again, just a hypothesis, but it's interesting to think about. They do go on to talk about the microbiome. So their third hypothesis is that there's some change to our microbiome, which I think is super interesting and certainly requires further research. The microbiome is being heavily studied. Like we're learning new things about the microbiome daily. But it's related to this, right? Like micronutrients are incredibly important for the health of our gut as well. So if we're eating less foods that are conducive to good gut health, um, the change in the microbiome overall over the last 40 years could certainly be having an impact on, again, how we kind of maintain and or lose weight.
Yeah. And so I think that's why it just becomes even more important to listen to all this stuff that, we've been talking about, where it's really taking control of your health and, exercising regularly, being really conscious of what you're eating, and just trying to be as balanced as possible. You're never going to bat 1,000, but compared to a lot of people, just by starting to pay attention to these things, you can really get a leg up and do yourself some good. So, I just think it becomes so much more important to, really be intentional with, what you're doing with your body and what you're putting into it. Because yeah, it's never been easier to be overweight.
I wonder if more people are lifting weights and less focused on body weight, because the metric they're using here for overweightness, for obesity, is BMI, right? And we've talked
Yeah.
about before how, you could throw your numbers into a BMI calculator and you'd be considered obese, but you're an incredibly fit, incredibly healthy, incredibly muscular person. So I wonder, another hypothesis could be just the difference in kind of body composition focus of the average person from 1980 to 2006 in the case of this study. There could be something to that as well. So just to note again that this BMI metric is useful for studying population data, and it's telling us something, but it's imperfect, and those imperfections could certainly be influencing the kind of claim that they're making out of this study, the results of this study.
It's a great point. All right, let's transition to the main topic now. Dylan, this is something. Well, we've done an overrated, underrated segment in the past, but this one's a little bit different. How, how did you want to
I
to
want to
to
call it
title this?
what say you about, and then we'll
Ooh,
list, and I think this is a very it's a repeatable segment. It's something we can do regularly because there's so much to talk about. And what I like about the way we're going to do this is we have not shared our list with each other. So
yeah,
we are going to pose the question, what say you about XYZ, to each other, and really just have a candid, kind of off the cuff conversation with regards to our thoughts and opinions about these different health and
yeah.
fitness related things.
I'm really excited about this topic, and I'm a little bit nervous about it too, because I have no idea where you're coming from. So I just prepared a bunch of different things, and depending on what you say,
I want you
it's
to
gonna.
start then. You go first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, I want to see where you take it. I
Oh, okay. Well,
want
that's
to see where you
fine.
want to take it.
So, well, the first thing that I wanted to get your opinion on, and I think I know it already, but I think it's important for the people at home, is barefoot shoes in the gym.
What say you about
Okay, okay,
barefoot?
got it. All right, Dylan, what say you about barefoot shoes in the gym?
Um, Huge fan. I think better than your average Nike shoe you'd buy at a Dick's Sporting Goods for sure. And by barefoot shoe, I'm assuming you mean a wider toe box, kind of zero drop
That
platform
is
shoe.
all
Not
I actually good. That's a good clarification. What I mean by that is more, yeah, natural footbed. So
natural
wide toe
footbed.
box and minimal to zero drop.
Yeah, incredibly important for the gym, giving your foot the ability to function as it's supposed to, giving your toes an ability to have a role in lifting weights, especially leg related work, is incredibly important. When I'm squatting or deadlifting, I'm really intentional about how my foot works, getting the weight into, the pad, the heel, but also using my toes to kind of grip the floor. Um, you'll find great success in doing that, and you can't do that in your average tennis shoe. So I'm a huge fan of barefoot shoes, zero drop kind of, or if you don't have that, which I didn't for a long time, I'd wear my average sneaker to the gym and I'd just take my shoes off and lift in my socks.
Yeah. That's actually something that and this obviously it's on a gym to gym thing, but I've noticed it being a lot more acceptable in gyms that I've gone to, where you see more people training in socks. And I think as long as you have a clean pair of socks that don't have holes in it, I don't think that there should be any problem or stigma behind it. I'm a huge fan of the wide toe box zero drop shoe, or I mean, yeah, like you just said, working out in socks. I think, especially if somebody comes in and wants to work with you or I, and we see them moving around with with their normal shoes on, and they're talking about back pain or knee pain or any sort of or lower body discomfort, the very first thing that we're going to do is say, all right, we'll try this movement, but let's get you out of those shoes first.
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, it's not going to fix the problems necessarily, but it's certainly going to get the body moving in a way that is going to be a lot more natural.
Yeah, if you can't spread all 5 of your toes out and like even almost grip things with your toes, your feet aren't functioning like they should be. And a lot of that has to do with the footwear we choose. So,
Mhm.
I wear shoes as little as I can. And when I'm in the gym and do want to have a pair of shoes on, I do have I think they're Vivo Barefoot is the brand. I love them. But you can find them on Amazon relatively inexpensive from, whatever brand. Just again, it's about that flat kind of footbed and that wider toe box to give your toes ability to expand and
Yeah, and nowadays
start movement.
even like the bigger brands are even starting to make
Mm.
more, wide toe box, zero to low, low drop to zero drop shoes. So, even if you're a Nike loyalist, now you can find something nowadays.
Okay, Matt, what say you about suspension trainers?
Ooh, uh, that is a great question.
And by suspension trainers, I mean for people who don't know, like TRX bands or
Blast
low or
straps.
straps, yeah, or
Mhm.
even rings.
Yeah, yeah.
But
If you think about like Olympic rings, but they're handles instead of the rings at the bottom.
mhm.
I'm a huge fan. I think that there's something that every every workout program could benefit in one way or the other. They don't need to be a cornerstone. If you are a big, big time lifter, you like moving a lot of heavy weight around. I'm not suggesting that transition all of your moves to these body weight suspension trainer movements, but I do think that there's a ton of benefit to practice those skills. And especially like if you're looking for a deload week, the suspension trainers are a great tool. If you are an athlete and you're trying to develop coordination and balance, you can practice a lot of single leg skills with the suspension trainer. But the thing that I like about it most is uh, I have a handful of clients that are either injured or older, and they have limited mobility in their hips, knees, and ankles. And so getting down into a deep squat is a really challenging proposition for them. And I can use suspension trainers with just about everybody and get them down into a deep squat pretty much right away. And I think there's so much value, even if they're not, you know, fully supporting themselves with their lower body in that position. I think there's so much value in being able to be in that deep squat position. But then also, I think there is, I love them. I'm loving my suspension trainers right now for tricep work. I'm doing just overhead tricep extensions with them, and they're absolutely killer. I think that using them for row prep, doing like a face pull move, just as an upper back warm up is great. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, man. I think if you're new to working out, they're fantastic because you can, as you noted, you kind of have some support with regards to doing different movement patterns, which is fantastic for learning them. Um, if you've been working out for a while, they're a really cool novel stimulus to the body. Like if you've only been touching weights, to be able to train with your body weight, you can progressively overload with these things by manipulating the angle of push and pull on them. So they're really cool. And if you're busy and you're looking for convenience, you can have them in your house and you can run a full program on suspension trainers alone. So they're a really cool tool. If you're looking to build maximal muscle, they're probably not the only thing you should ever touch. But for a phase or two, they again can be a pretty neat novel stimulus, and if you're time restricted, they're great.
Yeah, nice. All right, Dylan, what say you about fitness trackers?
Oh man, I had that one too. Um,
Booyah.
so we're talking like Fitbit, Apple Watch,
Whoop. Yeah, whatever.
Whoop, and so they start to get a little bit different, right? Like Whoop is a little bit probably more data than the Fitbit's going to provide. There's even the things like the Aura rings now, which are going to tell you a fair deal about like your sleep patterns, which is interesting. So I'm a huge fan of like a Fitbit, something that's going to give you some general idea of your daily activity trends. And that's the important point here is it's about the daily activity trend, not necessarily some specific number of steps, but rather, if you're looking to lose weight, you can have some data to generally understand how active you are over the course of a day. And if you are prioritizing weight loss, you might want to think about how you can move a bit more, right? So the steps can be useful just sort of as a monitoring trends kind of perspective point of view. I would not use them at all for tracking calories burned. They're absolutely useless for that. Totally imperfect around that kind of data. And then with regards to like where they get into some of the sleep tracking stuff, I probably had a different opinion 6 months ago than I do now. I think I thought that was really cool and something that I wanted to know a lot about. But my opinions changed on that some because I almost think it's too much data. Like it can become stressful to know, right? Like if you're wearing something that's telling you you had a shitty night of sleep and you wake up feeling fine, um, you're now going to believe that you had a shitty night of sleep and have an excuse to not feel so good. Like I'd rather just try to get the good sleep and then let my body tell me the next day how I'm feeling versus have this thing telling me every day how I'm supposed to be feeling based on what it's telling me about the sleep that I had.
Yeah, like as if this machine knows more about my body than my body does.
Right.
And that's again, it's the trends excuse me, the trends are great. And if you know nothing about, how much you're moving on a daily basis or what your average heart rate is, I think there is a ton of value in using stuff like this, but data in the hands of an idiot is useless. In fact, it can even be harmful. So, not to say that the majority of people that are using these things are idiots, but they're certainly not trained, trainers or dietitians or sleep coaches or anybody that really has any sort of or doctors, any sort of formal education on what these numbers actually mean. And so it's kind of turning into just WebMD, where you just like see this information and it tells you, well, this is what those numbers could mean, and it really has no realistic application to you and your life.
Mhm.
And then this is just a little whiny, but I also am getting really annoyed with the out, being out and hearing people, one of the small talk things is, oh, I closed my rings yesterday. I don't care if you close your rings or not. Um, and that's good for you. And I'm glad that you have something that you're striving for. But you shouldn't need your watch to tell you if you've moved enough today.
Yeah, preach. All right, I got one in the same vein. Matt, what say you about smart scales?
Oh, I have a smart scale. I got duped into buying one a handful of years ago. Uh, and I, I think that it's a piece of junk. I don't think that this $50 scale that I bought is really able to accurately tell me how much water I have in my body and what my, what my BMI is on a regular basis. I also, similar to what you said earlier, I don't necessarily think that having all that information regularly is necessary or even all that good for you. I do think that if you are actively making positive changes towards your health and wellness and your body composition, doing quarterly scans like an in-body is useful data. But you want that data quarterly and not, twice a day, or, especially when you're feeling like you're feeling bad about yourself at the end of the day, and you step on the scale, to really be a glutton for punishment. I think that unless you are spending a buttload on the top of the line, highest rated smart scales, I don't really know how accurate the information is. But even if it is, I don't even really know if that information is all that important for people on a day-to-day basis. So no, I think that they're pretty bunk.
Yeah, I mean the one they're trying to sell you on Groupon at 50% off, you can just write that off
Yeah,
as completely useless. I've looked
exactly.
into them because I would love to have a scale in my bath. I don't care about my weight. I would love to have something that told me what my lean body mass was on a given day. Like that would feed my ego big time. Um, so I've looked into them and none of them really work. Like an in-body scan machine is super expensive and that's still imperfect. So, if you're paying 10% the cost of what one of those is, it's probably about 10% as useful. So I would scrap them all together. I love your advice. I think if you're interested in this kind of data, a quarterly DEXA scan, in-body scan will be the way to go. You don't need to know this information any more frequently than that anyways. So yeah, I think they're kind of junk.
Yeah. All right. Nice. Now it's my turn.
You're up.
Okay. All right. Dylan, what say you about fitness challenges like a 30-day plank challenge,
Oh
or
man.
100 push-ups in each day, day one push-up, and then in 100 days you're going to be doing 100 push-ups, like those types of like scaling fitness challenges.
Like 75 hard.
Well, that like 75 hard, any of those.
So there's probably a spectrum to this, right? Like some of them can probably be fantastic. There can be some community aspect to it. You can do it with some friends. You can push each other. Um, so if it's one push up day one and you want to get to 100 by day 100 and you're doing it with 10 friends and you're all gonna do, well, I can't do the math on how many push ups that would be over 100 days, but that many more push ups than you would have otherwise. Fantastic. If that's what it's gonna take to get you to do that, um, that's good. I don't know how sustainable that is. I don't know that that's something that's going to help you build better habits with regards to your fitness. But I think on the other end of the spectrum, things like 75 hard should be reserved for a very small minority of individual. They are, I would say, borderline dangerous to some degree, way too intense, way more than you need to be doing. Um, so intense that a lot of times I think it actually the reaction to anything that severe is typically the opposite reaction, right? So like if you're not gonna touch alcohol, you're gonna work out twice a day, you're gonna eat, 3 perfect meals. I don't even know what it all encompasses, but if you're gonna go that strict and that hard for 75 days, day 76, you're probably gonna go have a burger and 5 beers and spend the
And
week
you're going to be
doing
like,
that.
wow, this is
Right,
awesome.
right. Like it should always be about what can we do to um, implement better habits over time that lead to an overall better, more sustainable, healthy lifestyle. So, um, there's a spectrum to the question you're asking. I think some challenges can be kind of fun. I think others can be all the way up to dangerous.
But okay, so on even just like the fun ones, and this is an honest question.
Mhm.
Do you know anybody that started one of those that's actually finished one?
No, I
Like
don't.
I
No, I don't.
can't think of I can think of myself included, that sees this new, 30-day challenge, and day 1 easy, day 2 easy, day 3 great, and then all of a sudden life gets in the way and no more challenge. And that's the thing is, it's the motivation versus discipline argument,
And
and it
the flexibility is lacking too, right? Like
right,
if you're that bound by like 30 days, whereas like if you take a fitness program,
right.
you know, you've got these phases and it programs you kind of a certain number of days a week, but it leaves the flexibility where if you miss a couple days, you can return to it. Whereas with the 30-day challenge, if you miss a couple days, you fucked up the whole challenge. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
get the pathway
exactly.
for sure. Yeah. And I don't know about the 30-day challenges. Again, I would probably be very out on those. I think again, it's sort of a spectrum. So I'm talking more like you and 10 buddies want to get together and figure out who can do more push-ups in a month. Something like that
Yeah,
could be
and
kind of neat.
that adds the community aspect to it.
Right.
Right. I love that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. One or two more.
Let's each do so I went first, so you're gonna do one, and then we'll each do one more after.
All right. I'm gonna ask you about one that I believe you're gonna have a fun time answering. What say you about organ meats?
Oh, uh, I fucking love organ meats. I think that they are an absolutely. If you want to talk about, if you want to take a look at a major difference in diets, between us today and people, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, one of the big things is the consumption of organ meats. When we think about consuming meat, nowadays, we've never been more disconnected from the animal that we're actually eating. You can go into a store and, for all intents and purposes, if you raised a child and did not tell them, if you just renamed chicken, like the meat in the store, you just renamed it something different, they would have no reason to believe that chickens that they see at the farm and what they're eating are the same thing. Same thing with beef. If you never told your kids in the store, that their hamburger, their cheeseburger is a cow, they could go their whole lives and have no idea that that's what those things are. We are so disconnected from the food chain, and it's having an effect on our bodies. The people don't care for organ meats because, well, for a number of reasons, but mainly, stuff like liver, they have a very distinct taste to them. And I'll tell you what, I don't love the taste of liver, but it is a meat. There is not one piece of meat that I can tell, like, after I've eaten it. Like, I feel stronger. I feel more vibrant after eating liver. And I'm not like the Liver King or Saladino. I cook it. I do cook the my livers. But it is such a nutrient dense food that I really do think if we started, if we started getting back to having liver regularly. I mean, if you used to go to, we still have, there's a supper club up here by us, the Sister Bay Bowl, that still has a liver and onion special. And I know a couple places do, but that used to be regular. You would go to restaurants and liver and onions was a regular special that people would order. Liver was something that we would eat, regularly. And and now, because we have access to just any cuts of meat all the time, we go for the more popular palatable cuts. But if you look at the nutrient density and all the different things that you get from liver, heart, kidney, it really is absolutely astounding. And so, I would challenge people, if you are consider yourself a meat eater, and someone who has become really disconnected from this food chain, seek out some organ meats. I prefer heart. Heart is my absolute favorite. I don't think that it really has a ton um of distinct taste. I think it reminds me just a lot of steak. And you just, season it with a little salt and pepper. I think that beef heart is unbelievable. But livers too, they are one of those things that are a bit of an acquired taste. But man, if you can find a way to work it into your diet, you're gonna feel fucking powerful. I promise you.
Yeah, everything you said is just true, and I think they're fucking disgusting and have a really hard time stomaching them. So, um, they are wildly nutrient dense, right? Like the lion in the Serengeti attacks the gazelle and it eats the organs and then leaves the rest of the meat for the scavengers. Like
Hmm.
that's wild. Um, super nutrient dense, worth giving a try. Don't want to overeat it because it is so rich in nutrients. Some things like iron you could actually get too much of. So like these guys, these influencers that are claiming to eat it like constantly, it's kind of hard to believe sometimes. But yeah, super nutrient dense. If you can get over the taste, can be really good for you. But if you hate it, and you're eating a balanced, nutritious diet, you're not necessarily missing out big time, I would say.
No, but if you are interested, there are some companies that offer supplements, organ supplements, that if you were interested, if you really can't stomach the taste, or like I have a friend who and this is next level stuff, but dehydrates, basically like makes liver capsules,
Mm.
where she, dehydrates liver and makes it into a powder and then puts it into capsules to give to her kids because, kids can be a little picky and they don't, they don't like the taste, but they can stomach the capsule. So, um, I would just suggest at least, giving it a shot. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But man, it is worth it, in
If
my
there's
opinion.
something you can eat that makes you physically feel better, I think it's worth a try at least. Like
Yeah,
that's pretty powerful.
for sure. Okay. So one more for
Let's do
each of
it.
us. All right. I've got to figure out which one I want to go with here. Okay. I got one. All right, Dylan, what say you about the what has been dubbed the king of all cardio routines, the 12-3-30? The 12-3-30, for everybody who doesn't know, this is the the viral cardio trend where you set a treadmill on an incline at 12%, and you walk for at 3 miles an hour for 30 minutes, and allegedly, Dylan, allegedly, it just melts the fat right off your body better than any other 30-minute cardio routine. So what do you think about that?
I think the claim is nonsense. I think if that's what you enjoy doing and that's what's going to get you to move more, go for it. But there is no magic formula to this prescriptive TikTok trend and its ability to melt away fat. Like, yeah, it can be good to put the treadmill at a bit of an incline. Oftentimes you see people do that and then they hold on to the treadmill handles, which totally defeats the purpose of the incline at all. But it will provide a bit more resistance while you're walking, so that can be useful. But with cardio, we've talked about this a million times. The only thing that matters is that you're going to do it. Like this is true for all exercise. Do whatever you're going to do and keep doing. Because the reason that exercise doesn't work for most people is because it's not sustainable and they quit doing it. So if this seems cool to you and you try it out and you fucking love it because it feels good and I don't know, you can watch Wheel of Fortune while you're doing it on the TV at the YMCA, fantastic. But it's not going to be any more effective than moving more, or any other form of exercise or movement. The most effective form is the one that you're going to do.
Uh, yeah, I mean, exactly. I think that anytime you see a video on social media and it's like, this is the ultimate insert buzzword here, they're lying to you. But like you said, if you like to do it, and that's the thing, is make sure you actually enjoy it. And you're not just doing it because you saw some chick on Instagram who you want to look like do it. So if that is your preferred form of cardio, be my guest. But yeah, it seems like it's going to do what any incline walk is going to do. It's going to be a slightly tougher walk.
Yeah, right. Go outside and let the topography of the land dictate
Yeah.
whether you're
Oh,
walking
and
uphill or not.
actually, I have one more thing to say on this. I think that we should also prioritize and celebrate any sort of cardio that gets you sunlight in the process. I think
Yeah,
that there's a huge, I went on my disconnect between uh, us, humans and the food chain, but I also think that there is, we are really lacking, quality sun exposure compared to what our ancestors used to get. And, I think if you can find a way to get some sunlight on your skin while you're getting your cardio in, I think you're getting, it's going to be even better for you because of it.
hell yeah, dude. There's nothing better than a summer walk with your shirt off, cars driving by, looking at you like you're a douchebag. Just give them the thumbs up.
That's right.
Um, all right, one more for me.
Yep.
I have a TikTok trend one in here too, but I'm gonna save it for next time we do this.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you a different one that I know again you're a fan of. So I know what your answer is gonna be, but I think it's worth talking about. So, what say you, Matt, about foam rollers and foam rolling?
Oh, I love foam rolling. I love it so much. Now, caveat, I think if you I think the way that 90% of people use foam rollers is a travesty, and I think that the majority of people don't deserve the foam roller for the wonderful mobility tool that it is. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of grace with this, and I'm also going to include other myofascial mobility tools such as a lacrosse ball, and I'm going to add it in because I think that these two, a foam roller and a lacrosse ball, are just massive. I think that every household should have those things in their main sitting room. The room that you spend the most time in, you should have a foam roller and a lacrosse ball. And if you are ever sore, if there's ever anything that's ailing you, you should hop down immediately and spend as much time as it takes on those devices for you to start to feel better. I really came into falling in love with foam rolling and the lacrosse ball because of Kelly Starlett and his book Becoming a Supple Leopard. And I really learned so much about how intentional foam rolling and myofascial release really can be. And I think the problem is that most people don't spend enough time or apply enough pressure on certain spots to actually cause any meaningful change. So, one, I think if you're going to use a mobility tool, you need to give it the time that it requires for you to make a change in whatever particular muscle it is that you're working. Uh, so that's one. I also think that it's something that we it should just be a part of it should just be a part of people's daily practices. It doesn't need to be this 20-minute foam roll before and or after a workout. That's just a waste of gym time, if you ask me. But if you just keep a foam roller and a lacrosse ball in the room that you spend the most time in your house, and you just make it a point to get down on those things and use them on a daily basis, you are going to see such a huge impact. Now, I will say I cannot squat without using a foam roller. Not that I can't, but I won't squat without using a foam roller because I know that I can make my squat instantly better just by spending some time on my right hip. I know that that's a spot where I have tightness and something that I really try to work on. And I know before I squat that I need to spend it, and it's just a couple minutes. It's 2 minutes on the foam roller, and I can make my squat for that day so much better. So yes, Dylan, you knew the answer, but I love them. I think that it's such an important tool that everybody should use.
Yeah, I think for me, useful in warming up, right, for increasing range of motion. I'm with you on that big time. I think it can help a lot with that. And then sort of on the recovery side of things, I think it's good for bringing blood flow to the muscles. There's the myofascial release that you kind of mentioned, which can help with soreness. So yeah, I mean, it's a useful tool. I agree with the point that if you want to get the benefits from it, you have to do it and do it correctly and do it regularly. It's not like a tool that you can just pull out and like magically, sit on and roll a couple times and get some major benefit from. But used correctly and used consistently, it can be a great tool.
No, and it should hurt. I mean, it shouldn't hurt. It like it. We should be so
It fucking
balanced
hurts,
and
dude.
that it shouldn't. But if you are using your foam roller or mobility tool and it hurts, you are doing it right. Take some deep breaths. That's step one. Take some deep breaths. Get control of the situation and see what happens if you can spend a meaningful amount of time on a particular spot and not just uh, rolling up and down on it like a jackass because you're just trying to kill time before your workout.
If you've never done it before, don't start with the IT band because you'll never do it again.
No, and there are
That shit
some
hurt.
conflicting things about should you or should you not foam roll your IT band. But yes, that would not be the place that I would start. Just a nice gentle upper to mid back foam roll
Yeah.
is a great place to start. I think
That
we
wrap
did it.
it up.
That was great. I had so much fun with that, Dylan. Thank you. That
Yeah,
was a
we'll do it.
killer idea, man.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, no, and if you folks at home have any ideas that you would like to share with us, please, please let us know. Um, and then if you like the information, head on over to thebasictrainer.com. Get yourself one of these I Lift to Sad songs tanks. We have Basic Trainer tees. We've got our free workout program, the Basic Home, which more of you are downloading on a weekly basis, which is great. And then also, when you're ready, try on out the Basic Muscle. It is our flagship 12-week strength training out of the box, ready to go to the gym workout program for sure, ready to get you strong for the summer. And now it is time to transition to the question and answer. And Dylan, this one was brought to me by a client of mine. They asked, "What was our opinion on the ideal time of day to work out?"
The time of the day that you'll do it consistently. Like it sounds overly simplified, but that's the best answer to the question. Like the time of day that works for you and your schedule to be consistent with it is the best time of day. Now, to get more granularly into it, I think for me, personally, and this is ultimately the sort of things that you have to think about when trying to dictate what's right for you. I don't do as well early in the morning because I'm just typically not charged up enough to give my best to the workout. I like to get a little food in my belly. Now there's a lot of people that really they feel very energetic early in the morning. They feel better fasted and they prefer to work out in that way. So those are the types of variables I'd be thinking about. I prefer to do it and I'm lucky to be able to do it at this time because of the flexibility in my work schedule, but about an hour after I eat my lunch. Like that's when I feel the best. That's when I feel like I can give the best to the workout itself. But there is no like magical time of day to get the best benefits from the workout. The time of day that's best to work out is the time of day that you can do it consistently, in my opinion. I don't know what you think,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that is the simple answer. Now, if you want the the slightly more in the weeds, version, there are pros and cons to both. So briefly, I think pros for working out in the morning, I think, and this is, one of the biggest reasons why I like to work out in the morning is the consistency factor. If you work out in the morning, if you get it done right away, it's done. There are no excuses. Nothing can come up in the day that could possibly derail you from your workout. So that I think is one of the biggest pluses. There is that, metabolism boost. It can kickstart your metabolism. Um, but really, the calories that you burn are the calories you're going to burn. So while some people might hang their hat on getting their workout done right away, for that metabolism boost. That's not the most important thing for me. But I think even more so is the way it makes me feel. If I get a good workout in early in the day, it becomes really tough to mess with me the rest of the day. I've accomplished something difficult. I feel good. I'm confident. I'm comfortable. And so that is, why personally I prefer to work out in the morning. I will say, if, just looking at how performance goes, my lifts are generally better if I work out a little later in the day because I'm warmed up. I've gotten, like you said, I got a little food in my belly. I've kind of eased into it a little bit more. So I think that as if you're looking for to get the most out of the workout, probably, for most people, working out a little later in the day is going to be good. Also, I don't really work out in a very crowded gym, but that could be something that you need to take into account. When is it the best time for you to go to the gym? Is it really busy in the mornings, or do you go to a gym where it's really busy later in the days? Is that something that you like? Is it something that you don't like? And then at the end of the day, if you work out too late in the day, it can impact your sleep if you are a very sensitive sleeper. I know personally, as long as I'm not doing anything like crazy cardio based, if I'm just doing like a strength training routine, I can work out right before bed and take a shower and then fall asleep, and it's no issue. But I know that that's something that can affect people. So, like you said, Dylan, it is something that really is just whatever is going to make the most sense for you, and don't let the menial science that we're throwing at you try to derail a good thing that you have going.
Yeah, super good points. Again, so long as whatever you choose is something you can be consistent with, that's what's most important.
Yep, that's it. All right. I think it's time
You look you
for
look you look dressed for this moment.
it is time for the I Lift a sad song of the day. Uh, Dylan, it's my week and I'm struggling. I've got a couple. You didn't love the Miley. I could see that didn't sit great with you, and so I think that I've got another pop star that I could turn to, but because you're my friend and I want to do this. I'm doing this for you. This is a song that I bet you forgot about.
Ooh.
So try it out. It is Nothing Better by the Postal Service. And
Whoa.
personally, I like the remastered version uh, better, but it's on their album Give Up. Uh, it's a duet. It's amazing.
I don't know
Um,
if I know that song.
Oh, Dylan, you know it. You know it.
Sing it for me.
As soon as you put it on, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, I remember this
All
one."
right.
Yeah.
I was a
Um,
big Ben Gibbard Death Cab
mhm,
Postal
yeah,
Service guy, so
yeah.
um, all right, I like it.
It's amazing. You're gonna love it. I love it. People, I hope you love it, and we love you. So please, when you see us on the street, say love the podcast because it's the best thing that's ever happened to us ever. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That was great. Oh yeah, good song. Oh yeah, nice. Oh, I dig it. That's a little mix up. That's gonna come in nice on that playlist.
It's so nice. And yeah, and like I said, I think the remastered is better, but
All right.
it's fucking beautiful.
Miley came on today while I was working out, and I didn't hate it.
Dude, no, it's not. It's you gotta. It's pick and choosing your spots.
It came on at a good time.
You the Angels Like You.
Yeah,
Oh, dude, that song's such a jam.
it's good. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
growing on me.
All right, cool. Um, fuck yeah, man, that was good. Let's stop recording.
Yeah, I was trying to think of stuff that we could do that like